Welcome to another episode of Dad Up, everyone. Thank you guys very much for joining me. I'm really excited for my guest this week. His name's Joel Staley, and he is doing amazing things. I'm excited to dive into not only his journey and the things that he's doing now, but more importantly, his dad journey. So welcome to the show, Joel. How you doing, brother?
Great, man. Thanks for having me, Bryan.
Awesome. I'm excited to do this because you and I have gotten a chance to connect for probably a good year or so. You and I have gotten to know each other a little bit. But for my listeners who may not know who you are, let's learn a little bit more about you, kind of how you grew up, the things that you do, and then what you're doing now, and also your dad journey.
Sure. I was born and raised in Omaha, Nebraska. I joined the Navy submarine service straight out of high school. Uh, Toured the world a little bit, met some great guys that I still keep in contact with today. Once I was done with that deployment or that term, came back home to Omaha, got just a regular job, met the love of my life, funny enough, on Craigslist buying a couch. So it wasn't like missed connections or anything. I was buying a couch and she opened the door and it's true what they say, time stopped. And I was like, man, am I at the right house or what's going on here? So I knew she was the one right away, Amy. We got married. I had our first daughter, Kennedy. And on Kennedy's first day of daycare, I was driving to work and I was starting to stress out. I call it a borderline anxiety attack because I started training a handful of fitness clients in my spare time. And that was the first time I was thinking, all right, I got to go to work for 8 hours and just do something I don't really care about. And then I'd come home and instead of it being, time to update meal plans and update workouts and check in on clients, it's dad time until she falls asleep. So when am I going to get to these clients? And so in a not really thinking about it, looking back, it's pretty crazy. I ended up quitting my job that was supporting the family and paying for her daycare and our mortgage and everything. I went all in on the fitness coaching business, which I was not making any money at the time. But I just knew I felt a calling. I felt like I was made to do something outside of transportation, which is the industry I was in at the moment. And I knew it was fitness, specifically tailored towards dads. And the rest has been pretty much history. That was 4 years ago. We've had two more twin daughters that just turned one last week. And I've been fat loss fitness coaching for men for the last 4 years and loving every minute of it.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a scary thing to do, especially for essentially, a brand new dad to give up on what was basically the income for the family and take a risk. And you did it and are doing it. And now you've got twins. Wow. Now you have no time. You thought you had no time then. Now you really have no time. That's
Yeah,
cool,
I
man.
wouldn't recommend it either. I'm not saying to do it. It is funny though. I feel like it was almost an out of body experience where I still look back and chuckle of like, man, what were you thinking? It makes no sense what you were doing. Like you're very blessed and lucky that things worked out, but it was it really was a spiritual calling. I don't feel like I had a say in the matter that day.
And how was your wife when you told her that this is what you wanted to do? Did she say you're crazy or you can't do that, or was she all on board?
Well, I'd love to say she was all on board. But I'm not going to. I had tried broaching the topic with her for about 6 months, and she, rightfully so, is a very safe. You make good money at your job right now. The company you work for is great people, family owned. You work with all your friends. Like if it weren't the case, then maybe do your own thing, or maybe build your own thing up and then transition. So she really wasn't having it. And that first day of daycare happened to be on Valentine's Day, which didn't help the matter. Because when I talked to my owner, who's a buddy of mine, I was like, man, why do we have to do this on Valentine's Day? It seems like I somehow find a way to blow it every Valentine's Day. And he's like, just don't tell her till tomorrow. And that was a giant mistake because then he went and told everybody. So she found out through a third party.
Oh
So
boy.
it was a mess, Bryan. But looking back, it's just one of those stories you tell. We're laughing about it.
That's great. Well, thank you for your service. I was in the Marines, so I appreciate you dedicating a little bit of your time to give back to the country.
Right back at you.
I was, I was in college when I joined. I was in college, and I remember I was working, and I was going to a community college, and it was right out of high school, and came home, told my dad, "Hey, man, I think I want to take a break from college. I think I want to take like a semester off, or a half a year off, just to take a break and just work. I'll just focus on my job, and I'll just take a break from school. That's what I wanted to do." And my dad said, "Okay, if that's what you want to do, that's fine, but you're going to pay rent because you live in here for free. You're going to pay rent." And I thought, well, that's not right. I don't want to pay. I don't want to pay
Yeah.
rent. He's like, "Well, you're a big boy now. So if that's what you want to do, you want to quit going to school. We're going to take care of you while you're going to school. But if you want to do that, then you're going to be a big boy. Then you're going to pay your own rent." And so I said, "Well, then what if I go into the military?" And he said, "That's an even better idea." And my dad's not a military guy, never been in the military, but he said, "That's an even better idea." So I thought I was going to like back him into a corner, and instead he backed me into a corner and called my bluff. So I ended up joining the Marines, and don't regret it one bit. It helped me grow up, helped me mature. I joke all the time. People ask me, what'd you learn in the Marines? And I said, I learned how to fight, I learned how to cuss, and I learned how to drink. That's what I learned in the Marines. But it helped me grow up, helped me understand responsibility, and it's something that I'm very proud of to this day. But I was done at 4 years. 4 years, I was ready to go, and what they call, what they call us in the military when you go into normal life, it's civilian world, right? I was ready to be a civilian again. So. But thank you very much for your service, my friend.
And thank you. Yeah, there's something to be said about just that time being with other men who are pushing you, and you have to learn discipline, and you have to learn how to obey orders and follow through with what you say you're going to do. Even as waking up and making your bed, or being out at PT at 5:30 in the rain with other guys, doing it with a community makes it a lot better than having to go do it by yourself, and builds a lot of character.
Right, for sure. Absolutely does. Well, so you join this entrepreneurial world, taking a risk of jumping out of your job and just diving all in headfirst into entrepreneurship. Is that something that you, thinking back now, is that something that you would still tell yourself to this day? Would you tell yourself back then, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, say, "Hey, this is what you need to do"? Would you still tell yourself that today?
Yeah, but again, it goes back to the military. If you're not a self-starter, or if you do better being told what to do and you like a lot of direction, then entrepreneurship's probably not for you. I would say it was a benefit having the mortgages and the daycare and the bills and all those things, because I really didn't have the choice to fail. It was like, all right, you got to figure this out, or you're going to have to beg for your job back 6 months from now with your tail between your legs. But I knew that, having been at that job for 6 years, it just, I'd look out the window and it was a sunny day outside, and I'm like, I can't leave here for 6 more hours. Like, I'm going from one box to another box. Uh, this is life. And then I was working with people that were doing essentially the same job I was, and they were 60, 70 years old. And I'm like, man, if I don't act now, that's going to be me. And I just knew that I would rather fail and be able to say that I gave it my absolute best, and I just wasn't cut out for it, than to go to my deathbed comfortable but full of regrets. And that was, at the end of the day, the thing that encouraged me to take that leap.
Well, let me ask you this. When it comes to getting into the space that you're in now, what was the drive behind doing that? Did you grow up as an athlete? Did you grow up in fitness? Is that just something that's always been a part of your life? What was the purpose of that particular industry?
Yeah, I've always loved fitness. I remember me and my dad would watch Rocky marathons on TV every time they'd come on. We wouldn't miss it. We'd watch as many as they had to play. And then I'd be cranking out push-ups on the ground. And I'd always ask my parents at dinner, I'm like, is this healthy? And we'd be eating like spaghetti and garlic bread. And of course, they're like, yeah, it's healthy. And
Right.
I'd eat it and I'd go downstairs and do push-ups until finally one day my dad ended up taking me to the gym. And I remember it like it was yesterday. I was like 11 or 12. And I just saw these these big bodybuilder guys with big muscles lifting a bunch of weight. And I saw these girls in these spandex pants. And I was like, man, does my mom know my dad's coming here? This place is awesome. So I started going just because it was fun to hang out with my dad and do guy stuff and the environment and scenery. And then a few months later, I started getting those newbie gains. You start to see like your bicep poking out a little bit more than it had been. And once I saw the result of all that hard work, yeah, I became addicted to it right away. And it's always been that one constant in my life, the one thing that I have control of, even if, the world's shutting down or things aren't going the way I want it to, I can say, all right, well, let's start back at square one. As my fitness in check, let's start there and build our way back up.
That's cool. My son, my older son, he's 24. He is God, he is all about fitness. And I think that if he could live at the gym, he probably would. He just doesn't miss going to the gym. He watches what he eats. He knows all the different stuff. I mean, even the stuff that I'm taking, like I'll ask him, do you think this is okay? Or do you think I should go with it? He'll give me his advice because he's worked at, different supplement shops like Vitamin Shop and all that stuff. He's worked there and all that. So he knows kind of the ins and outs of the different supplements and stuff, but he is just fanatical about working out and taking care of himself. And I think it's great because at 24, when I was 24, when I was 24, he was born. So, but just before that, I mean, I was into, drinking and hanging out and partying and yeah, get a workout in every once in a while. I was not as dedicated like he is. So, I hope that he continues as his journey goes on and he ages, he gets older. I hope that he continues, and I think he will because he's pretty devoted to it now. So that's cool. I mean, spending the time with your dad, not only you being able to work on your fitness, like you said, noticing the differences in your muscles and all that kind of stuff, getting addicted to that, but also spending time with your dad. What kind of an impact, what kind of relationship did you have with your parents when you were growing up?
Great. And I'm very thankful. I'm very blessed about that because I know not everyone's so fortunate, but my parents were together until I was, ended up getting divorced when I was in my mid-teens, and they ended up getting back together and divorced again like 5 years later. But they've always been cordial. They love each other. They just weren't seeing eye to eye anymore. But as far as when I was growing up, hardworking, loving. Uh, I mean, they weren't scared to discipline you if you were out of order. And I don't want it to think like, I don't want it to come off like I was always this health nut. I think the reason I started lifting weights and why I do it now are completely different. I started when I was a prepubescent boy because I wanted to look good for the girls, and I thought it would make me a better fighter if anyone ever picked on me by the time I went to high school, which of course it really doesn't. But it might scare some people away, I guess, if you get your arms big enough. But over the years, it's become way less about the vanity aspect of it and more so, again, just being that staple, getting the confidence, and with three young girls, that energy at the end of the day to be able to show up for them and not just zone out on the couch and have them play with their Barbies by themselves or whatever it is.
That's awesome. Do you teach your girls right now? So you have 1-year-olds, obviously. How old's your older daughter again?
4.
4. Okay, so you got a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. What is your 4-year-old maybe seeing the things that you're doing and maybe trying to get into them? I know I had my good friend Chris Powell on the show a couple years ago, and he talked about his kids coming out into the gym with him and at his house and working out with him and doing different exercises. Are you getting your daughter into that kind of stuff, or is she still into the Barbie dolls and doesn't want to have anything to do with it?
Well, I cannot wait for the day that me and Kennedy get our first actual lift in. She does like doing pull-ups, so I'll hold her feet and she'll pull herself up on the bar a crazy amount of times actually. Probably because she's so light. But no, it's more so like we'll go out on walks and get fresh air. If her and it's very tough this day and age with all the processed stuff that they're eating. You don't want to crack down on them and just be like, no, you got to eat healthy all the time. It's a very thin line that you're walking. So if she eats too much garbage, for lack of better words, and she has a stomach ache, I'll just try to word it as, oh, did you eat too much candy? Well, maybe we'll have an apple, make your stomach feel better. And just plant those little seeds as opposed to shoving it down her throat and making her go the opposite direction. But yeah, it's a fine line because it's tough. They want to eat different dinner than we're eating. They want to have snacks and candy constantly. You meet up with other kids and their parents are like no holds bars, eat all the cookies and cupcakes you want. And you got to remember they're like a tiny human, so a cookie that's the size of my head is really like 20 cookies to them.
Right.
So just having her check in and doing mindful questions about how she feels after she eats that kind of stuff versus how she feels when we're out taking a walk or eating something healthy, and getting her to come to those realizations herself is the avenue I try to go down.
Yeah. I'm glad that you brought that up because I think about that with parents, and I've probably asked other fitness dads about this, but when it comes to, like you said, having to draw that fine line between allowing your kids to enjoy some of the, bad foods that are bad for you, not keeping them from it so much, but also making sure that they're eating the stuff that they should be eating. How do you do it as a dad? How does Joel do it as a dad with his kids? Because kids, like you said, they like the junk food. They see their friends eating it. They want to eat it, the candies, cookies, all that kind of stuff. But it's tough when you're in the industry that you're in and you're trying to model a certain behavior for your kids. It's tough because they're being pulled in two different directions between the influences outside the home and then the influences inside the home. How do you guys do it?
Yeah, it's tough because you definitely don't want to fat shame. And then because a 4-year-old will go to school and if she has an overweight teacher, she'll be like, you're fat. Like she doesn't know any better. She'll just call it how she sees it. So you can't really use that kind of verbiage or say fat or anything like that. We try to put a focus on healthy. So like if she sees like one, let's say she's watching Frozen and she really likes Anna or Elsa, we'll say like, yeah, she's healthy. And then Kennedy's now on this health kick, which is, I don't even know where she got it because Bryan, being transparent with you, it's something I struggle with, getting her to make the right choices. I don't know where this health kick came from, but now, like overnight, as of a few weeks ago, she went from wanting ice cream every night to now she wants like carrot sticks. She's on a health kick, and I don't know where it came from, but I love it. And actually, it's kind of like the inversion. Me and my wife Amy are supposed to be helping her with this. Now it's like, oh yeah, we don't need ice cream tonight. Let's just have something clean. She's actually driving the ship, which I'm loving it. But it is tough. You don't want to force those things on them because kids are so rebellious and always testing their boundaries. It's almost like even if you're just trying to coach them along, they want to go the opposite direction just to spite you a lot of the time. So I've been maybe rightfully, maybe wrongfully putting it off of like when she's a little bit older, having more of an in-depth conversation of these choices are going to affect you one way or another when you grow up. 4 years old is pretty young. But what I do is if she says like, oh, I ate too many M&Ms or something like that, I'll just have her say that. Oh, did you eat too many M&Ms? Yeah, okay. So it's kind of like, oh, eating too many M&Ms makes me feel bad. Eating the carrot sticks makes me feel good, and try to get her to connect those dots herself.
Mm. And what about she goes to school, her lunches? I mean,
They're
are
dog
those
crap. They're like a tortilla with cheese in them, or like just chips and salsa. For as expensive as daycare is, I have no idea who sets up their meal plans. They don't get an ounce of protein. It's all just like cheese, carbs, crap. I don't understand it, but if I had it my way, we'd homeschool it, but that's a fight that I'm not winning.
okay, let's shift gears just a tad, because there are dads that have young kids that have jobs that they spend 10 hours a day at, and they are unhealthy because they're eating the fast food at lunch. They have no time at night. They're tired at night. They just want to relax. They don't get up early to work out. I'm up at 4:30 in the morning. I do my workout before anybody else is up. I get it out of the way. That's what I like to do. But that's a struggle for dads, or that's a struggle for men, to wake up early and do that. For dads that may be struggling with finding that balance of not only being the provider for the family, but also being there for their kids. Maybe they have sports practices and all that stuff. Not having the time, the energy to devote to taking care of themselves. What advice would you give to dads that are struggling in that area?
Well, start with something small. I think what happens a lot of the time is we get that tickle of motivation, and then on Sunday we'll spend 3 hours meal prepping a bunch of meals, and we set our alarm for 5 a.m. and we really go gung-ho from going 0 to 100. And then come like Tuesday, you're really sore because you haven't worked out in a while, and now you're like pushing it to the limit. Your body's fighting you because you went from eating 4,500 calories a day to now you're just eating like broccoli and chicken, so you're getting like 900 calories a day, so you're starving, you're sore, and you use your willpower to coast on that for a couple days because you are motivated and you do want to be healthy for your family. But then it almost clicks. You get that little whisper in your ear from, I don't know if it's the devil or whatever it is, but it's like, come on, man, is this really worth it? And then you end up just going full 180 back to what you were doing. And then even worse than that is you set a goal and you gave up on it. So now, like, neurologically, you're losing confidence with yourself and you feel like a failure. So now you're eating because you're depressed and stressed out about that. You're like frustrated. Why can't I figure this thing out? So then you're just like piling the food in because you feel bad and watching TV to like zone out and distract yourself from feeling the way you feel, all the shame because you wanted it so bad a couple days ago and you only made it a few days. So you're much better off setting very small goals. And I really like what you're doing, Bryan, with the streak. You're working out every day the entire year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing that with my drinking, whereas I know if I have one drink, I'm going to probably drink a lot. Whereas right now, I'm over a month of not drinking. It's not worth it. Gonna have to start all over at the beginning. So I'd say set small goals, capitalize on the streak, ingrain it as a habit, and as it becomes second nature to you, just start incorporating more goals and restarting that.
Yeah. I think that's important. Starting small. You're right. You've hit the nail on the head. That's what happens. I mean, guys will, and I've done this in the past too, where I've decided I'm going to do something that's I'm just going to go gangbusters, and I can keep it up for a week or so, and then it just slowly, whatever that habit or bad habit is, it slowly goes back. There's been a couple things in my life that have taken place where I don't know what it is about me in particular, but when I set my mind to something, I'm all in and I won't give up on it. I had, being in the Marines, I was a big time drinker and stuff. And when my boys were younger, I was a heavy drinker. Being out of the Marines, I was a heavy drinker, and I grew up in an alcoholic family. And I realized one moment when my younger son was preteen, I was sitting in the chair watching TV, and I asked him to go get me a beer out of the fridge. And he went and got me a beer. And this is routine, have somebody get me a beer, routine. And I caught myself. I don't know what it was. It was just a light bulb went off in my head. Like, what in the hell are you doing as a dad right now? You're teaching your son about alcoholism by you telling him to go get you a beer. And it was that moment that I said, I have to make a switch. I have to do something different. And I stopped. I literally stopped cold turkey drinking any alcohol at all. And it's now I'm over 13 years completely sober from that, abuse to my body. So it was just a decision that I made, not just for me, but for my family. And it goes along the lines of like you talked about, my fitness goal this year. It's a huge goal. I mean, that's a huge thing to do. But I'm dedicated to it, and I'm 70 something. I don't remember the day now, 70 something days in, of working out every single day. And it doesn't have to be, an hour long workout. I do certain things as a dad. I want to take care of my body. I'm 50 years old, so I want to take care of myself. I'm not getting any younger. My body's going to start to break down over the next 10 years or so. I want to make sure that my body's in good shape. So this goal that I've set for myself is far reaching, but achievable if I stay committed to it. So yeah, I work out. I go Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'm doing some sort of weights. Usually it's upper body. On Monday, I do legs on Wednesday, and I do, back back and shoulders on Friday. That's what I focus on for those 3 days. And then Tuesday and Wednesday are more of a cardio day. So I'll either do the bike or I'll go for a run, something like that. And then Saturday, I go for a long run. I typically will go for a longer run on Saturdays. Now, Sundays, I know it's important because you're a fitness guy. I know it's important to get a rest day in there. You should have some sort of rest day. So Sunday is really my rest day, but I don't just rest. I go for a walk. So I may feel like going for a run, but I keep it to a walk. And there have been days, Joel, I'll be honest. There was a time about 2 weeks ago, maybe 2 or so weeks ago, where I had come down sick. I'd come down ill. I was not feeling great. And my wife said to me, because she knows I'm on this goal of working out every single day for the year, she's like, what are you going to do? You committed to this and now you're sick. You really can't be out working, exercising. And I said, I'm just going to go for a walk. And it was literally a 15-minute walk. I did that for a few days until I started feeling better. And then once I was feeling better, then I got back on the full workout. So I did something, moving my body in some way for a minimum of 15 minutes. And it's just, it's like you said, once you develop the habit, get ingrained inside you, now it's part of you. Now you feel like if you don't do it, you've done something wrong. You're missing out on something. You have to do it. So it's like driving a car. When you get in the car, you don't even realize you're putting your seatbelt on because you've done it over and over and over again. But that one time you get in the car and don't put the seatbelt on, you're like, wait a minute, something feels weird here. It's kind of like that. So yeah, it's a huge commitment, but I'm bound and determined to get through it. So it's a lot of days, but I think I can do it.
Yeah, it's awesome. There's something to that streak thing. I really do believe that, because it's like, oh, why have I gone 70 something days and today I'm going to stop? No, I don't want to do that. What you said about the drinking, man, that really resonates with me, because it was actually 3 things that encouraged me to stop drinking here more recently. And the first thing was similar, where I was drinking a Zevia, which is like a 0-calorie pop substitute, just out of a can one night. And Kennedy came up to me, my 4-year-old, and she was like, is that a beer? And I was like, what? Like, why is that your first impression? I'm like, this fitness athlete could just as well be a protein shake or anything else. So basically a water pop, carbonated water with some flavor. And she assumes it's a beer. That tells me I'm doing something wrong. Then I had a birthday party, and every single person brought me whiskey, except for my mom got me a picture of an old fashioned, and my spiritual leader, who helps me run the faith aspect of my fitness coaching, got me a Bible. Thank goodness for him, or literally everyone just got me poison for my birthday. And I was like, I have so many hobbies, so many interests, and people think of me and they just think whiskey. So that was another wake up call. And the third one, like the nail in the coffin, was we just did our twins 1 year photo. My wife is all about like the memory photo. She
Yeah.
lines up all the time. And she thought it would be cool if Kennedy's drinking from a little sippy cup. She has a glass of wine, and I'm drinking wine out of the bottle. And it's like we survived the first year. And it's just, it was too real to me. Of yes, I have been using alcohol as a crutch to get like away from these screaming babies and chaos ensuing constantly. I have been leaning a little bit too heavy on the booze. So when they turned one, I said I committed to a lot of people that and I gave my word that I would take the next year once they turned 1 years old until they turned two at least to have a sip of alcohol. And I'm finding the benefits right away.
Yeah. Well, good for you. And, feel free to reach out to me anytime you need an extra ear in your corner, just to kind of, keep you going because, for me, I was a functioning alcoholic. I coached, all my boys sports that they played, every team that they were on, I coached, and I didn't do that, under the, effects of alcohol. I was completely sober when I coached and stuff. It was always when I got home at night. That's what I did. I
Yeah.
had some beers or maybe some wine. Sometimes it was the hard stuff, but that's what I did. That was just routine. And then I would get up the next morning and carry on my day, go to work and do everything that I need to do. And then at home again at night, it was back to, the drinking. So yeah, it was. So I was a functioning alcoholic, but I like to say that I didn't have a problem with alcohol, but many people will tell you that I did, including my
Yeah.
wife.
It
So
seems to be that's the I talk to a lot of guys about alcohol, and you always want to preface. Now, I wasn't like crazy. I wasn't like a booze hound, but I was probably drinking to excess more than I ought to be.
yeah,
And I don't want people thinking that I was like Will Ferrell in what's that old school movie either, where he's doing the beer bongs and like crazy every night. But like you, if I were to see how many drinks I were having in like a 6 month period, that number would be insanely, I mean, triple digits for sure. So I can't really say if someone were to call me a functioning alcoholic, I wouldn't have much of a rebuttal. So yeah, I just better to cut it out completely for me. I seem to be more of an extremist, and I can't just have one and then go on with my day. I got to push the limit, so better to just cut it out completely for this
yeah.
guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think about, just in the times that I have been at events or parties or family functions or whatnot and seen people drink. And there has been parts of me that, yeah, I would love to be able to just kick back with everybody and have a beer or have a Corona or something like that and hang out. But watching people and the way that they behave when they're under the influence, is it was eye opening,
I'm
because
starting to see that myself. Yeah.
yeah. So and then even the next day, knowing that hey, we just hung out with all these people and they were partying it up, and now the next day here we are. I'm getting up and I'm completely fine and going about my day, and I'm thinking about them going, they have headaches right now. They're regretting that they drank so much, and I don't have that issue anymore. So anyways, I mean, that's just, I mean, we took a left turn there, but I mean, that's part of, being a dad and being a husband. When we have these vices in our life that can cripple us, you're not only taking away from what you're doing as a man and what you're supposed to be providing as a dad, but now you're impacting your family. And you mentioned it with your own daughter. I mean, it was the same with my son. So um, there are many dads out there that are struggling with various habits, whether it's drinking or drugs or maybe gambling. They're dealing with those things, and we talk about fitness and starting off slow, making a small goal. That could be something that you could do yourself if you have one of these habits that you're doing that's not healthy. Making a small goal to get yourself away from that habit, is a great place to start. For me, it was cold turkey. That is something that's unusual, especially for an alcoholic, to just stop cold turkey and never go back to it. But I can do that. Some dads can't. And there may be some dads out there that have to start slowly. So maybe it's, if it is drinking, uh, only drink on the weekends. Maybe you only have beers on the weekends. You don't do it during the week, something along those lines. But I think that also is the same for working out as well. And I'm sure you would agree with that. When you're wanting to take on a workout regimen or get back into shape, starting with a small goal is better for you and will help you sustain the ability to continue with that goal. You'll see the results and it'll make you want to continue fulfilling the goal that you have for that. So,
yeah, and accountability too. So I had to reach out to my buddy Bryan, who's a client of mine, has been for years in Ireland. And he's always said, man, if Bryan, I'll leave his last name out. But there's Irish, there's only like 3 or 4 last names. If Bryan can quit drinking, man, anyone can do anything. He would get after it. And so I reached out to him and I made sure to use those words. Bryan, I've given it a thought for a couple weeks now. I wanted to before I just jumped into this. I want you to be my accountability on this. I give you my word that I'm going to go without a year, or worst case scenario, if I find myself tempted, I'm going to reach out to you before I do anything. That way, at least there's some sort of safeguard where you have to check in with somebody. And once that little voice in your head tries to manipulate you, you have a safeguard that you have to get around before you just make a bad decision that you're going to regret immediately after. So accountability, community, and the drinking thing too, thinking about it, it's like, what if one of my twins got out of her crib in the middle of the night, fell out and like broke her arm, and dad's too plowed to drive him to the hospital? Like, what kind of dad is that?
right.
So yeah, I know it's a lot. We did take a left turn, but that's great. Congratulations to you, man. That's huge.
Oh, thank you. And you have 2 Bryans now in your corner. So if you need to reach
Yeah,
out to me,
awesome.
reach out to me. Let's talk about for just a minute when it comes to being a dad and having the challenges of not only your work life and the struggles of finding time to be there for your kids. How does Joel do it? Because you're trying to run a business to be successful so you can provide for your family. And you have to, and being a coach, knowing that, being a dad coach myself, being a coach, we know that we have to take care of our clients and take care of the ones that are essentially paying us to do what we're supposed to do for them. How do you find the time to balance between dad life and coach life?
Well, my kids are in daycare, so, and that's recent. They weren't in daycare until they were about 10 and a half months old. So that 10 months was really rough. My wife is a superhero. She was working from home and we had some help from a nanny. But really, it is just allocating time. I'm not working on client stuff past 4 o'clock. I try to get all that stuff done prior to family time. Family time, I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you, Bryan. Sometimes it's rough. They're so young and it's just Mickey Mouse Club and we're all trapped in the living room. So I think that is why I would drink too, is I heard the term escapism and something clicked. I was like, am I just fast forwarding until I get to work again? I'm very passionate about helping my clients and working and doing those things, but it wasn't fair to the family. So now I just try to escape in a different way where it's get out of the living room, either change up the environment, go see grandma or great grandma, or go on a walk or go to the jump house, or just do anything to pass the time and give them something to do too, because they don't want to be trapped in that living room just as much as I don't want to be trapped in that living room. And I'm the one that's able to drive and make decisions. So just trying to be as productive as I can throughout the day. The method that I teach for fat loss is fasting, though, so that actually helps create more time instead of chopping your day into so many bits and getting all the meals in. And then I save all my calories or whatever till I'm with the family so we can enjoy dinner together and whatnot. But it's really just getting what I can get done, even if it's not everything during the day, and being okay with leaving some for the next day and prioritizing that so it gets done early the next day. and just having work time be work time and family time be family time.
Yeah. Family time, when you're on family time, I talk about it a lot, but when you're on family time, you're on family time. There's no goofing off on the electronic devices. There's no checking emails. It really comes down to, and that's something that I've been good at as a dad when my boys were growing up, is this: when I was with them, I was with them. There was no wavering from that, because they notice it, right? Your daughters are at an age right now, like, I mean, you mentioned the her asking you if that's a beer. Your kids notice it. So when you're not 100% checked in, they can tell. Even at a year old, they can
Yeah,
tell.
I don't want them thinking like this is dad's face right here.
Right.
There was a time I remember me and my wife were both looking at our phone, and I looked down and I saw our girls looking at us, and like, just to think that both their parents, their faces are getting blocked out by their little black mirror in their hand, that stuck with me. And I was like, we will never be looking at our phone intentionally, or be more cognizant of it. At the same time, like, one of us needs to be tending to the kids and showing face and playing with them, because that's no way to grow up. You just look up and see the back of two iPhones.
Right. I heard a story once, and it's such a cool story, but it was about a dad and his son. And his son asked his dad, and he was a younger boy, but he asked his dad, "Dad, how much money do you make? What do you make, for a living? How much money do you make?" And the dad was like, "That's none of your business. You shouldn't be asking that question. That's inappropriate." And he said, "Oh, I just want to know." And the dad got mad and sent him to his room. And the dad thought about it for a while and thought, well, why would he ask that question? That's just kind of an odd question. So he goes into the kid's room and he's crying, the kid's crying and stuff. And he's like, "What's wrong, dude?" And he's like, "Well, Dad, I was just wanted to know what you make." And he's like, "Yeah, but son, that's not an appropriate question. You don't ask your parents what they make. You just don't." "But why did you want to know that?" And he's like, "Oh, I was just wondering if I had enough in my piggy bank to buy some of your time, to get some of your time from you." And it crushed. It's just kind of an analogy of us as parents, the time that we spend away from our kids, and then when we're with our children, how much are we really truly with them and focused on them. I think you're right. When it comes to these devices, your kids are looking at the back of your phones instead of your face. So for us as dads, especially you, Joel, being an entrepreneur, I mean, that's a busy life. And when you have three little ones, you have to make sure that you're dedicating your time to them. And so when you're checked in with them, you're checked in with them. And that's cool that you've gotten that figured out, where you're cutting off time at 4 o'clock. That's great. I want to ask you this before I let you go. Where can my listeners, viewers, anybody, if they want to look you up, learn more about you, maybe reach out to you for coaching, maybe have just a general question on fitness, what's the best place for them to do that?
You can go to joelstaleyfitness.com. I have a free guide there that outlines how we're a little bit different than the standard. Like, here's your meal prep and macros and whatnot, the kind of fasting regimen I recommend for my clients. We've worked with over 1,300 guys now, so we're starting to get things tightened up and figured out. Otherwise, just add me on Instagram, Joel Staley Fitness. Find me through Bryan's or Dad Up account. He's one of like the 10 people I follow now. So I'm pretty easy to find. I have some videos on there too, helpful tips, or I'm always available to answer any questions or help anyone out however I can.
Cool. Well, listen, Joel, I'm glad that you and I have gotten a chance to connect, and I'm looking forward to continuing our friendship. I may have some fitness questions for you myself on a personal level, and I'll reach out to you separately for that. But I'm looking forward to continuing our friendship, and keep doing what you're doing, brother. Thank you very much for being on.
Hey, likewise. Thank you so much, Bryan.
Well, listen, guys, this has been another episode of Dad Up. I want to thank my good friend, Joel Staley, for being on the show. Make sure you guys are checking out what he's doing. He's very active on, especially Instagram. So if you have a message or you have a question, want to reach out to him, or you maybe want some coaching advice, or maybe you need a coach in your life to help get your fitness back on track, Joel's your guy. So make sure you guys are reaching out to him for that. And if you have not yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, make sure you're doing that, or my podcast, anywhere you get your podcast, so you don't miss any of the awesome guests that I have on each and every week, like Joel. So thank you again, Joel, for being on the show. And I look forward to seeing you guys all on the next episode of Dad Up. Wow, another amazing episode in the books. So much was shared, and I'm truly grateful my guest was able to pour into you to help you elevate your dad game and really dad up. Make sure you bang that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. And while you're here, please don't forget to leave me a rating and a review. I always appreciate the feedback. And one last thing, don't forget, your role as a dad is one of the most important roles you have. So if you need a little help or have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me on my website at daduptribe.com or at my Instagram page at daduppodcast. Until next time, everyone, Dad Up.